Welcome to another installment of Deconstructing Babylon, where we discern the signs and symbols of the mystery religion of Hollywood Babylon. I'm the Discerning Clerk, and I use a biblical framework to deconstruct movies from the 90s.
Noticed your eyeglasses. They don't have any lenses in them.
They're my dad's. The lenses hurt my eyes.
I've only deconstructed one animated film on the channel so far, and the hidden meaning was so disturbing to me, considering I was watching content made primarily for children. But then it had me thinking that perhaps cartoon animation isn't really made primarily for children. Or maybe cartoon animation is made to present inappropriate adult themes to children in an acceptable way. Though I still think that so-called adult animation was always the original idea, just children turned out to be a highly suggestible audience as well. Today's selection, A Bug's Life, was one of the first films to come from Pixar Studios, partnered with Disney Animation. The Video Movie Guide gives it a full 5 stars, and reviewers wrote, "Superior in every respect to 1998's other upstart computer animation insect film, Ants, this is the latest example of genius from Pixar, the trailblazing studio that has been the medium's ne plus ultra ever since shorts such as 1986's Oscar-nominated Luxo Jr. and 1989's Oscar-winning Tin Toy. Blessed with animators who recognize the critical importance of strong storylines and whimsical, easily approachable characters, director John Lasseter and his crew just get better and better. The story concerns an industrious worker ant, voiced by David Foley, whose inventive talents place his colony in peril from a band of marauding grasshoppers. Determined to compensate for the trouble he has caused, the little fellow undertakes a dangerous journey to the city, where he hopes to find some resourceful warrior bugs, shades of the Seven Samurai, for a final reckoning with the grasshoppers. This film is nothing short of sensational, witty, luxuriously animated, and lots of fun. Rated G. That was a lot. The competing film they referenced, Ants, was released the same year by DreamWorks Studios. In my humble opinion, the storyline in Ants is superior to A Bug's Life. But when Pixar is partnered with Disney, it's the obvious choice for critics. So let's get into the symbolism of A Bug's Life. The movie opens in the day sky with a bright shining sun, which is actually a reflection from the water. A large tree planted by the water provides everything for the large ecosystem within and around, including the ant colony, which is the focus of the movie. The ants work together to gather grains, nuts, seeds, and berries for the winter. Meanwhile, the queen of the colony works to train her daughter for the role. It's funny because in an ant colony, the queen isn't responsible for giving orders, only laying eggs.
You're not the queen yet, Ada.
Princess Ada, the heiress apparent, is very worried about her role leading the colony because they are actually gathering all this food as a sacrifice of sorts. Now we meet Flick, a haphazard worker ant with big ideas and bigger inventions.
I'm sorry!
Flick desires to help the queen and the colony with his inventions to increase productivity and impress the elder princess. Sadly, the other ants don't want his kind of help, and they continually reject him and his ideations. The offering being gathered is about to be collected by its recipients, and the ants' persistent work pay off. As the group waits underground together, Flick's haphazardness causes the entire offering to fall into the water. The larger bugs were expecting a feast and are forced to go underground to ask the ants where the food is.
Where's the food?
A gang of grasshoppers, led by Hopper, voiced by one of my favorites from the 90s, Kevin Spacey, demand their offering. Hopper threatens the colony to provide double the amount of food before the season is over. There seems to be a contract, or at the very least, an understanding between Hopper and the Queen that the gang provide a certain level of protection to the colony. But there is to be a new queen, Ada. Flick suggests a different plan to the Queen and Council to find bigger bugs than them, to fight off the other bigger bugs than them. This plan kills two birds with one stone, so to speak, as Flick the haphazard sets out on his intrepid mission to the city.
So go already!
Which is where we meet our would-be helper bugs.
I have been in outhouses that didn't stink that bad.
P.T. Flea and his traveling circus featuring a wide variety of acts and performers, Heimlich the German caterpillar, Slim the uppity stick bug, Rosie the friendly black widow, Frances the tough ladybug, married couple Mantis and Gypsy, Dim the strong silent dung beetle, and twin pill bugs Tuck and Roll.
Francis, you're making the maggots cry.
Disaster strikes the troupe during their performance, and their flea boss fires them all and leaves them stranded. Meanwhile, Flick has journeyed to the city without incident, which is okay, and he begins his search for tough bugs for hire, like mercenaries.
We are the greatest warriors in all bugdom.
Flick believes the act and hires the troupe to deal with the gang of grasshoppers. They all make a quick return trip to the tree where the colony is currently working to bring in double the offering.
At the rate these leaves are dropping, we're gonna need a miracle.
The troupe arrives and confusion ensues. Flick wasn't even meant to make it back to the island, let alone bring help. The colony believed this acting troupe can actually save them. The colony make a feast and a celebration to honor the troupe, and the sacrifice they haven't even made yet. And the troupe, of course, are not willing to die for this ant colony, and they go to leave, feeling deceived by Flick.
You, sir, are the charlatan in this scenario.
Princess Ada also feels deceived by Flick, and she rightly wants to meet the bugs that would save her mother's colony.
The caterpillar's using himself as live bait!
The close encounter with the bird acts as an audition of sorts, proving the bravery and abilities of the troupe to the princess and the colony, and maybe themselves. Flick has made it clear that he really admires Ada. She says she feels inadequate for her role, but still inspires an idea for Flick.
But if our ancestors were able to build this anthill, we can certainly rally together to build this bird!
This declaration of unity marks the middle point of the film, and then we get a nice montage of the ants' industriousness as they design and build a counterfeit bird. The season draws to a close, which means their deadline for the double offering looms. They complete their bird and then just wait. They don't collect food for themselves, even though that is what they would be doing, if not for the wasted offering. The grasshoppers, meanwhile, can be found much further south already, maybe New Mexico or Baja California. Wherever they are, the gang decide they are already comfortable with enough food for the winter and don't want to travel back to the anthill. Hopper explains that it's not about the food at all.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
So with the gang en route, the colony throws another feast, this one in honor of the bird they built, and they're ready to use it at any given moment.
Jiminy H. Cricket!
The trumpet sounds the return not of the grasshoppers, but of P.T. Flea and his now defunct traveling circus.
I'm looking for a bunch of circus performers. Have you seen them?
This revelation that the warrior bugs are just acting the part exposes Flick for his lies. It also puts the entire colony at risk once again, and the queen finally says something.
You bugs were never here, so I suggest you all leave.
Flick is also rightfully put out for lying and endangering the colony, and once the last leaf falls, the grasshoppers return as promised.
I give you a second chance, and this is all I get!
Remember, it isn't about the food. It's about putting the ants in their place. So Hopper's plan includes squishing the queen.
Then she's dead, they cry, boo-hoo, we go home, end of story.
Flick and the troupe return to help the colony and save the queen. The troupe do what they do best and distract Hopper and his gang so the ants can fly their bird creation to scare them away. And it almost works too until they lose control of the bird, setting it on fire and revealing their ruse.
Whose idea was this?
But Flick doesn't back down from Hopper, and in so doing rallies the rest of the colony to not back down as well.
We're a lot stronger than you say we are. And you know it, don't you?
The ants chase the grasshoppers away, but there must still be a reckoning with Hopper. As the rain starts to fall, Hopper takes to the skies with Flick in tow. All seems lost until nature takes its course. Though if it truly was nature, that mama bird would feed her babies regurgitated grasshopper. Despite not planning for the long winter, the ants seem to have been just fine because the movie jumps to the next warm season. The troop is finally leaving the colony, and the princess gets an impromptu coronation, and Heimlich emerges from his cocoon with tiny, ineffectual wings. The colony even seemed to have adopted Flick's inventions and produced them en masse. The final image is the tree in blossom and the colony thriving. Of course, the animated bloopers that were made especially to run during the credits were a signature trademark of Pixar that set them apart as animators and storytellers. And if you stick around to the end of my videos, you know I am inspired by the same technique. Now, you're probably familiar with the old fable, The Ant and the Grasshopper, about the industrious ant and the lazy grasshopper, and how important it is to work hard and provide for your own needs. And perhaps that's why writers chose these species of bugs specifically. Although the storyline didn't give us that impression, but was rather meant to speak to an oppressed people by an authoritarian dictator. Frankly, it's a tale as old as time, but it isn't the fable. And is it a story that children understand? Let's examine for a moment what message or ethic is communicated to the younger viewing audience that it's allegedly meant for. Flick is goofy and lovable. He makes mistakes and is forgiven. He has ideas that are at first rejected, but eventually widely accepted and even practiced. So, determination, for one. On the other hand, Princess Ada is anxious and unforgiving. She has a slight character arc, which warms her a bit, but she comes across as more of an authoritarian parent than helpful and encouraging partner. Then there's Dot, Ada's younger sister. I didn't speak of her throughout, but she is the one who has faith in Flick. She is the one who hopes he comes back, and she is the one who brings him home in the end. The child character, even in animation, will be the one that children identify with. But Dot's existence, while beneficial to the other characters, had zero impact on the story, which is why I didn't really speak of her. So, why ants and grasshoppers, if it's not about the fable? Surely there are far more threatening insects and arachnids to an ant colony. Why not a wasp's nest in the tree that torments the ants? Or maybe that bird is a bigger problem for them. But they chose ants and grasshoppers. Did you know that food is defined in the Bible? Yahweh lays out specifically what is clean for us to eat and what is unclean for us, and we should not eat it. And even insects appear on this list of clean food, and it is the grasshopper, the cricket, the locust. Do I think this movie is about bugs we can eat? No. Though crickets on the menu has been ramping up lately, I think the grasshopper gang represent clean people, the set-apart people of Yahweh, and all the other bugs represent the pagan, non-believing, wicked world. Wow, that's a stretch, even for me. But let's work through it together. Flick, like so many more before him and since, must leave his island people in order to save his island people. Yet the journey does not change him, as is custom. In fact, there is no journey to speak of. The helpers he brings back to the island are hypocrites, literally play actors, who provide no real help at all, but distraction. They are instead a shield of false truth and pretend justice to cover Flick's lies and lack of integrity.
Just go tell him the truth.
They can't know the truth. The truth you see is bad.
And do all Flick's actions make him a savior of his people? Hardly. The circus bugs, the acting troupe are just a distraction, and quite frankly, the story would have made more sense without them. I think they were there as interactions for Dot, and they're the ones who are most memorable. But they're written on purpose to be a distraction. Like so many clowns we encounter in our lives, they don't know what they're doing or where they're going. Now, what about the grasshoppers? The smaller group that seems more powerful. The ones who accept offerings from other nations. It reminds me of Israel under Solomon's rule, when many surrounding nations paid tribute to Yahweh despite not being worshippers of him. Because Israel was quite a fearsome people, conquering nations much larger and stronger than them when Yahweh was with them. Hopper seems to have an agreement with the queen for this offering, and he says it's not about the food, but it is about their hearts. The ants are actually wicked and rebellious and would rather live alone and prosper only themselves and worship gods of their own making. At least, that's the way I see it. Don't take my word for it. Know the word for yourself. And subscribe if you want to, but don't follow me. Follow the one who saves you. And until next time, keep looking up.
Now that's funny.